The autumn sun filtered through our kitchen windows as Sarah loaded the dishwasher with the kind of aggressive efficiency that meant something was bothering her. I'd learned to recognize these signs after 10 years of marriage: the tight jaw, the way she avoided eye contact, the silent treatment that spoke volumes. We'd been distant lately, our conversations reduced to logistics about bills, groceries, and whose turn it was to call the plumber. I couldn't pinpoint when intimacy had become a scheduled event we kept postponing. Brad had moved in next door about 6 months ago. He was the type of neighbor you notice. Fit, successful, the kind of man who washed his Tesla every Saturday morning like it was a religious ritual. He'd been friendly from day one, borrowing tools, showing up with beer on Friday nights, offering to help with the deck project I kept saying I'd start but never did. Sarah seemed lighter around him, laughing more, which I told myself was fine. It was good even. He was our friend. That Friday evening, Brad came over for dinner. Sarah had spent hours preparing. Herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables, the expensive wine she usually saved for special occasions. I felt like an actor in a play I hadn't auditioned for, watching my wife move through our kitchen with a grace I'd almost forgotten she possessed. She wore the blue dress, the one that brought out her eyes. "You know what?" Sarah said, her voice carrying that teasing edge as Brad complimented her cooking for the third time. "If you keep buttering me up like this, my husband might start to worry." She shot me a glance, testing my reaction. "I might trade him in." "You offering?" Brad laughed, playing along. "What's your asking price?" $100, Sarah said, surprising herself with her boldness. I could see it in her face, the little thrill of flirtation, the danger of it all. He's got his uses, but he's clearly defective. Comes with plenty of mileage. I forced a smile, trying to keep things light. This was banter. This was what married couples did. A little playful jealousy. A spark of the old competitive energy that used to define my relationship with Sarah. But something felt different. Her eyes weren't on me. They were on him, watching his reaction carefully, hoping for something I couldn't provide. Brad set down his wine glass deliberately, his expression shifting from amusement to something more serious. He pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. "How about 1,000? The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that stretches and distorts, becoming a living thing in the space between us. Sarah's laugh died in her throat. My hand froze halfway to my water glass. "That's not funny," Sarah said, but she was still smiling, though it had become uncertain. "Who's joking?" Brad leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "Seriously, I'd give you 1,000 right now, tonight, cash for him." I should have been angry. I should have stood up, told him to get out, defended my marriage with some dramatic gesture of masculine pride. Instead, something else happened inside me. A sudden clarity, as if I'd been wearing glasses with the prescription slightly wrong and someone had snapped them into focus. The way Sarah hadn't immediately shut it down. The way her cheeks flushed. The way she glanced away from Brad but not at me. "You're insane," I heard myself say, but I was smiling. A strange, cold smile that felt like it belonged to someone else. But let me counteroffer. Both of them stared at me. Sarah's expression shifted to confusion, then alarm. "I'll do it," I said quietly, the words arriving as a complete surprise to me. $1,000. Right now. I'm yours." Brad's confidence flickered for just a second. Sarah's face went pale. "Mark, what are you—" "I'm serious," I continued, leaning back in my chair, my voice steady and calm. "Get the money. I'll pack a bag tonight. Call it an experiment. See how long you can keep the fantasy before it becomes real." The game had shifted. I could feel it in the air. A dangerous new gravity pulling us all toward something neither of them had anticipated. And I realized in that moment that I wasn't as interested in preserving my marriage as I was in discovering exactly what had been hidden beneath it for so long. Brad's smile had faded. Sarah's hands had stopped moving. "Well?" I asked. "What's wrong? You seemed so confident a moment ago." Brad didn't leave that night, but the energy had fundamentally altered. The jovial neighbor persona had cracked, revealing something harder underneath. He tried to laugh it off, claiming I'd misunderstood his joke, but his eyes kept darting to Sarah, searching for her reaction. Sarah, meanwhile, had retreated into the kitchen, moving dishes around with mechanical precision, refusing to engage in the strange new dynamic I'd initiated. After Brad finally left around midnight, Sarah confronted me in our bedroom, her voice a harsh whisper despite the fact that no one could hear us. "What the hell was that?" she demanded. That was humiliating. You made us both look like idiots, did I? I sat on the edge of our bed, unbuttoning my shirt with deliberate slowness. I thought I was finally honest for once. I thought someone needed to acknowledge what's actually happening here. What's actually happening? She made air quotes with an angry flourish. We had a neighbor over for dinner and made a stupid joke. That's all that was, is it? I turned to face her. Is that why you've been wearing perfume on Fridays? Why you spent 3 hours cooking? Why you kept tucking your hair behind your ear while looking at him? Sarah's face flushed. You're being paranoid and ridiculous. But she didn't deny any of it. I didn't press further that night. Instead, I lay in bed beside her tense, silent body and made a decision. If she wanted secrets, I'd give her secrets. If Brad wanted games, I'd teach him how to play. And if our marriage was already on borrowed time, I'd spend it discovering the truth rather than living in the comfortable delusion we'd constructed. Monday morning, I received a text from Brad. Coffee? We met at a neutral location, a cafe across town where neither of us was likely to see anyone we knew. Brad ordered an Americano and got straight to the point. He slid an envelope across the table. $2,000, he said. I'm serious about the offer. I opened the envelope slowly, confirming the bills inside. My heart rate had spiked, but I kept my expression neutral. That's a lot of money for a joke. It's not a joke. Brad leaned closer, his voice low and intense. Sarah's different from other women. She deserves better than this half-life you two have. I can see it in her eyes. She's unhappy. You're unhappy. Why not do everyone a favor? Just like that, I asked. I walk away and she's suddenly yours? She's already mine. The certainty in his voice was almost hypnotic. You just haven't accepted it yet. But she will be. One way or another. This is just practical. Clean. I pushed the envelope back toward him. Keep your money. But I'll tell you what. Let's make this interesting. A bet. Brad's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. Let's see who she chooses, I said. Not in a week, not in a month. When she's ready. But it needs to be real. No interference from either of us. Just 3 people being honest about what they want. Brad's smile returned, predatory and confident. You're on. But you should know I've been honest with her for months. She knows exactly what I want. The question is whether you're man enough to accept it. After we parted, I sat in my car for an hour. The envelope with $2,000 on the passenger seat. My phone buzzed with messages from Sarah asking where I was, if I'd be home for dinner. Increasingly impatient texts suggesting she was worried or angry. I didn't respond. Let her wonder. Let her question. Let her realize that the comfortable predictability she'd been taking for granted had vanished. The game had begun in earnest, and I was no longer playing to win Sarah back. I was playing to understand what had broken and why. And somehow I knew the answer was going to hurt far more than any infidelity. By Wednesday, Sarah was desperate enough to show up at my office. She cornered me near the parking garage, her eyes red from crying. Her composed exterior completely dissolved. Where have you been? What's going on? Her voice cracked with panic and anger. You barely speak to me. You're gone half the night. And Brad? Brad keeps talking about some deal you made with him. What deal, Mark? I leaned against my car, studying my wife like she was a stranger I'd just met. In many ways, she was. Why don't you tell me? Brad seems to think you're very aware of what's happening. Sarah's face crumpled. Nothing is happening. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? I pulled out my phone and showed her my recent text thread with Brad. His messages grew increasingly explicit as the days progressed. References to their connection, his future with her. How much better he could treat her than I ever could. These are from my neighbor. Our friend. Do any of these surprise you? Sarah's hand trembled as she read. I could see the conflict in her expression. Shock, yes, but also something else. Recognition. Confirmation of something she already knew on some level. I never encouraged this, she whispered. Didn't you? I felt a strange calm, almost detached. All those Friday dinners? The blue dress? The perfume? The way you light up when he's around? Or am I misunderstanding something? There's nothing physical, Sarah said desperately. It's just, he listens to me. He makes me feel seen. You haven't looked at me in months, Mark, maybe longer. When did we stop touching? When did we stop talking about anything real? The accusation landed because it was true, and hearing her say it, Hearing her articulate the emptiness that had been growing between us felt like confirming what I'd already known. "So what's your plan?" I asked coldly. "Wait for him to make his move? Or did you already have an arrangement?" "There is no arrangement," Sarah's voice rose. "But I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer me honestly for the first time in maybe a year. Do you even want to be married to me anymore?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implication, and I realized I didn't have an answer. Not the one she wanted, anyway. That night I didn't come home. I checked into a hotel instead, an anonymous chain place where I could think. The $2,000 were still in my possession, and I stared at them for hours trying to understand what game I was actually playing. Was I testing Sarah's faithfulness? Testing Brad's sincerity? Or testing my own capacity for self-destruction? Around midnight, my phone rang. It was Brad. "It's done," he said without preamble. "Sarah confessed everything. Well, almost everything. There was never anything physical, but she wants out. She knows what this marriage has become. We're going to be together, and honestly, you should thank me. I'm liberating both of you." I felt something sharp twist in my chest. "Put her on the phone." "She's sleeping," Brad said. "She's at my place." We had a long talk and she was exhausted. "Don't worry, I'm taking care of her." The implication was clear, designed to wound. Whether it was true or not didn't really matter anymore. The line had been crossed. The theoretical had become actual. "I want to see her," I said. "Not tonight. She needs rest. She needs to be away from you. In the morning, maybe. We'll figure out the logistics." He hung up before I could respond. I didn't sleep that night. I drove to Brad's house around 3 a.m., parking down the street. The lights were off, but I waited, watching, feeling like a stranger observing a life that had ceased to be mine. Around 6 a.m., Sarah emerged, wearing yesterday's clothes, her hair disheveled. She got into Brad's car when he pulled out of the garage, and they drove away together. That's when I realized something crucial. I wasn't angry that Brad had taken her. I was furious that I'd been so eager to let him. My little game, my test of their worthiness, had been a magnificent display of how little I actually fought for what was mine. Sarah didn't come home for 3 days. She texted me from Brad's phone, cold and formal, requesting that I contact a lawyer about dividing our assets. The divorce papers appeared by courier on the 4th day. It was efficient, brutal, and final. I told myself I didn't care, but I was lying. The hotel room became my entire universe. I barely ate, barely slept, just existed in a gray twilight state where nothing felt quite real. I'd won the game, I suppose. I'd proven that Brad's confidence was justified, that Sarah would choose him, that my marriage was as fragile as I'd suspected. But the victory tasted like ash. On day 5, I received a call from an unknown number. My first thought was that it was Sarah calling to apologize or explain. Instead, it was a woman I didn't know. Someone named Patricia. "Mr. Henderson," she said. "I'm calling because I think you should know what Brad Calloway has been doing in your neighborhood." Patricia was Brad's ex-wife, living 3 states away with a restraining order against him. She'd seen pictures of me and Sarah on social media, realized we were his current targets, and felt obligated to warn us. What she described was a detailed pattern of psychological manipulation that Brad had perfected over years. He specialized in couples who were already struggling, positioning himself as the solution while deliberately driving wedges deeper. He did the same thing to me and my ex-husband, Patricia explained. He got between us, positioned himself as the savior. And once he'd achieved his goal, he became someone else entirely. Possessive, controlling. Once he owns you, he breaks you. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked numbly. "Because I saw it heading in this direction with your wife, and I thought maybe you should know before it's too late. Brad doesn't actually want relationships. He wants conquests. Once he's won, the game stops being fun for him." After we hung up, I sat in silence. Then I did something I hadn't done in days. I called Sarah. She answered on the 3rd ring, caution in her voice. "Mark? Brad's ex-wife just contacted me," I said. "Are you safe?" There was a pause. "I don't know what you mean." "Just answer the question." Another pause, longer this time. "He's been different since I moved in. At first it was wonderful. He was attentive, romantic, understanding. But now he's controlling. He doesn't want me to talk to my friends. He monitors my phone. Yesterday he told me I was being ungrateful, that he'd saved me from you and I owed him my complete loyalty." My heart rate spiked. "Where are you right now?" "At his place." "He's at work." Mark, I think I made a huge mistake. I'm coming to get you, I said. Pack a bag. Be ready in 20 minutes. He won't let me leave, Sarah said quietly. He has my car keys, my phone. How do you think I'm calling you? I'm using the landline he forgot he had installed in the study. I was already pulling on my shoes. Don't let him know you're talking to me. When he leaves tomorrow, I'll pick you up. We'll figure out the rest. The next morning, I arrived at Brad's house and found Sarah on the curb with a small suitcase, looking hollow and frightened. She got into my car without speaking, and we drove in silence for an hour before she finally broke down. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry, Mark. I was so stupid. I thought he was different. I thought he actually cared about me, but I was just another game to him. I didn't have the energy to say I told you so, or to remind her that I'd orchestrated this entire disaster with my own strange revenge fantasy. Instead, I pulled into a rest stop and held her while she cried. Two broken people who'd almost destroyed their marriage because we'd stopped paying attention to what we actually had. The next 6 months were messy and complicated. Sarah moved into her sister's place while we figured things out legally. Brad, furious at being denied his prize, turned his attention to making our lives difficult. Small cruelties, threats delivered through lawyers, showing up at places he knew we'd be. Patricia's information proved invaluable in establishing a pattern of harassment, and eventually, a new restraining order was filed and granted. Sarah and I started therapy, both individually and together. In those sessions, we began to understand that our marriage hadn't failed because of a single infidelity or one moment of weakness. It had deteriorated slowly, through accumulated neglect and unspoken resentments. The real work wasn't forgiving each other for what happened. It was learning to communicate about what had been broken for much longer. One afternoon, about 8 months after Brad moved back to his home state to harass a new family, a family that, Patricia warned us, had already filed their own police reports, Sarah and I sat on a park bench near our old neighborhood. We weren't together anymore, not officially. We'd made the decision to divorce, finalized just the week before. But we'd remained in contact, genuinely trying to understand each other for the first time in years. Do you regret it? Sarah asked. That game you started with Brad? I considered the question honestly. I regret how it ended for you. I regret that my ego needed to be proven right, rather than just having a conversation with you about what was happening between us. But no, I don't regret everything about it. Why not? Because it forced us to stop pretending, I said. For years we both pretended that things were fine, that our distance was temporary, that passion just naturally faded out of relationships. We pretended until we were so far apart that a stranger could wedge himself between us without even trying. That game, as stupid and self-destructive as it was, made everything real. It made us honest. Maybe too late to save the marriage, but at least we finally know the truth. Sarah nodded slowly. Brad called me yesterday. He has a new wife, apparently. He's already working on her marriage the same way he worked on ours. How do you feel about that? Disgusted, she said. And grateful it's not us. I was so close to letting him destroy me, Mark. When I was in that house waiting for you to pick me up, I realized I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I'd become someone's prize instead of someone's partner. If you hadn't come, she didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. We sat in silence, watching other people live their lives around us. I've been thinking about something, I said finally. We made a lot of mistakes. We stopped paying attention. We let someone exploit the cracks in our foundation, but we also both recognized something was wrong before it was too late. We both chose to walk away from Brad's game when it mattered. That counts for something. Are we going to try again? Sarah asked tentatively. After the divorce is final? I didn't answer immediately. The old version of me would have said yes immediately, desperately grasping for a second chance to fix something that was fundamentally broken. But I'd learned something in those months of therapy and separation and hard honesty. I don't know, I admitted. But I know I want to try knowing each other again, without the marriage as a safety net, without expecting it to be something it isn't. Maybe that becomes a marriage again eventually. Maybe it becomes something else, a friendship, a partnership, something we haven't even named yet. But whatever it is, it'll be real. No more games. No more pretending. Sarah reached over and took my hand. Her fingers were familiar, the touch both strange and comforting after the months apart. She didn't need me to say more. She understood that this was my way of saying I still loved her. just differently than before. Slower, truer. A year later, we'd remarried in a quiet ceremony with only close family. Not because the problems had magically vanished, but because we'd learned to face them together, openly, without the elaborate defense mechanisms we'd both constructed. We'd learned that marriage wasn't a game to be won or lost, but a practice, daily, intentional, sometimes mundane, sometimes profound. Brad became a cautionary tale we'd occasionally reference, usually when we caught ourselves slipping back into old patterns of silence and distance. His ghost hung around our marriage lightly, a reminder of what could happen when we weren't vigilant about actually choosing each other. And sometimes, in quiet moments, I'd think about that dinner where everything started. Sarah's throwaway joke, Brad's $1,000 offer, my decision to play along. It struck me as almost absurd that one moment could spiral so dramatically, except that it wasn't really one moment. It was 10 years of small moments building up, of taking each other for granted, of letting comfort become complacency. The real test, it turned out, wasn't whether we loved each other. It was whether we could love each other actively, intentionally, every single day, whether we could choose each other even after discovering how easily we could be torn apart. That was the game that mattered. And unlike the one with Brad, this one had no winners or losers, only the choice to keep playing or to walk away. We chose to keep playing.